So this is super boring because there's nothing dynamic about it. There's no dynamic data here. So if this component wants some data, that needs to change over time potentially. We will usually put that in the component's state. There's no reason you couldn't put a local variable inside the render function, but for most of the kinds of things you want it to do, you're going to be better off if it's actually being stored in this component's state. So let's do that. So that means we need a constructor, which we know from last week, you just name a method constructor, and it is the constructor. Now, very important in React, you must call super. If you've done other object-oriented programming, you're probably familiar with what that means. That means you're running the constructor from the parent class, which is React.component. As React.component includes some code in the constructor that's pretty important. So we need to make sure that we call that inside our custom constructor, or it won't happen. And then we just initialize this.state. And it's an object with any number of properties that we want. But how about we have a property called name? And we'll initialize it to Eli. Why not? I like my trailing commas too. So then if we wanted this to actually appear on the page, we saw that in JSX, you can just throw some curly braces in there and put a JavaScript expression in the middle of your JSX. So let's just throw some curly braces in here and say this.state.name. Right? This.state.name. And we get hello, Eli. And that's the basics of state. Not terribly interesting yet. It'll be more interesting if we can actually change it over time. But that's a start. What if we had then an array in state? No reason you couldn't. It can contain whatever you want. Doesn't have to be a simple string. So what if we had acrobats? And that's an array. And inside the array, we have some acrobats that each have a name and some sort of feat of daring do that they're going to perform. For example, we have Charlene, whose feet is being shot out of a cannon. While wearing a helmet, of course. And we have Henny, is that how you spell it? H-E-Y. H-E-N-N-Y. How about I put name here first? You've just joined the circus. What are you going to do? What's your act? Heck yeah. And Dante. He made eye contact. What you doing at the circus, Dante? Like a contortionist, or they're all acrobats. Trapeze artists are acrobats. Contortionists are acrobats. Tumblers, whatever. What are you going to do? Yeah. Tightrope. Very good. Cool. So sure, now we've got an array in state, right? So how can we throw that down there? Here's tonight's roster. Well, how about I just say this .state.acrobats? Oops, how about I not put a space there? Not that it actually matters. Well, it doesn't seem to love that. What's it saying here? Unexpected token, expected comma. Cool. How about I put this inside a div? Yes. Yes, I know. I'm demonstrating that. Thanks. Adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Huh? Just read that. Adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. In other words, these two need to have some sort of parent, because you can only return one JSX element. It can have as many things inside it as you want, but you got to have one thing that you're returning. Just like in a normal load function, you can't just... I can't say return the string happy and the number 8. Just put expressions on multiple lines and have it return both of them, right? That doesn't make any sense. Nor does it make any sense to have your return statement return react.create element followed by react.create element on the next line. That doesn't make any sense. Those are two different statements that can't all be returned. You can return them in an array maybe, but you can't just return two totally different things. So we better wrap these in a single element. No prob. So remember that error message. You'll probably see it at some point. All right, now what? Now there's nothing being rendered, but I'm not getting an error message. There we go. There's that. Throw this in there. Doesn't like it. Okay, we're going to have to do something else. Going to have to do something else with our array. So what we want to happen is for each thing in that array, I want to print that thing, right? What can we do if we want to do the same thing to everything that's in an array? We can do for each. What if we need each one to actually return something? Map, right? Let's check that out. What if I just put a little JavaScript expression here, and I'll say this.state.acrobats.map. And I write a little arrow function in here. Each thing inside the Acrobat array is an Acrobat, right? So I'll just put Acrobat as my argument here. And then how about I just put like an li for each one of them. So for each one of them, I want to return an li. And I want this to collect all of them. See, there we go already. And then I suppose I may as well put those inside a ul. This doesn't really need to be on multiple lines, I guess. And then inside there, I could just say acrobat.name. There we go. Comma acrobat.feet. Yeah. You can just use map. If you want to take everything in an array and create a new element out of them, just map over it and put what you want here as JSX. So I don't know if it's hit you yet, but this is way, way easier than all the trouble we were going to with vanilla JavaScript. There's no separate function for render list item and all this kind of stuff. It's just that easy. Piece of cake. Questions about that? So we added state to our component, and we even put an array in state, and we loop over it with map. Didn't that?